Hello, everybody. Welcome in. It's Friday, and you know what that means.
Front Office Friday!
Let's go. It's Front Office Friday, the last Front Office Friday before the trade deadline, which we will be live at deadline time. We'll probably go live an hour, maybe even an hour and a half or so before the trade deadline. So that's going to be coming up next week, February 8th, 3 o'clock Pacific time. That's the trade deadline. So we're going to address all the latest trade rumors today. We'll be taking all of your questions, your comments. Before we get to all of that, Keith, do we want to talk about it?
I am in the only piece of purple and yellow clothing that I own, as well as my new pullover is like in the Lakers throwback
That's true.
bluish color. So, yeah, I mean, we have to. I made you do it after the Christmas game, so
That is
it's
true.
only fair that I do it today.
So, Keith, I have had a lot of people telling me that I need to stick it to you here because the Lakers beat the Celtics without LeBron, without Anthony Davis. I don't feel like that's necessary. I mean, that's not really how we tend to roll. On top of that, I actually see how this could be good for both teams. I thought this could be a wake up call. Not good in the sense that Boston should be celebrating, and they certainly shouldn't. But I think it's a bit of a wake up call for them. I thought they looked across the floor, saw no LeBron, no Anthony Davis, and went, "Oh, we've got this in the bag." And then the Lakers had a bunch of guys step up and played with heart and passion and energy, which frankly we don't see all the time. And so maybe it's a wake-up call for the Celtics, also a wake-up call for the Lakers that, hey, we can actually play good basketball when we go out there and we put forth the requisite effort and we get after it. So I don't know. Obviously, it was a big night for the Lakers, an important night for the Lakers. When I woke up happy after seeing that win, I understand Celtics fans are very, very upset and really should be. But as you noted yesterday, there's still like 4.5 games up in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, if this was any team other than the Lakers, no one would really bat an eye. They'd be like, bad loss, guys are out. It is what it is. It was because it's the Lakers. That's part of why people are so upset. And that's what makes the rivalry special, no matter where either team is in the standings, no matter what their kind of play is right now. On the court, who plays in the game or not. It just means more than other games do. We only get it twice a year. So it really is still a very special rivalry in that sense. And I think to your point, I felt like some of the Lakers guys, I feel like some people have now twisted into they don't want to play with LeBron and AD, like because that's just people have to make drama out of nothing. I think they went out there with we have nothing to lose. So they played free and loose and fast the whole game and played really well. And that's a style for a handful of those guys that really fits them. If you're running a lot of, all right, we're going to bring it up, we're going to get into our sets, we're going to run stuff. Some of those guys' value is not necessarily as high as, hey, let's just run up and down the floor and play, kind of for a long part of the game, bombs away basketball. And that's fine. They did what they had to do. And they certainly brought the energy and, tenacity and everything else you want to say to a rivalry game. There, like Jackson Hayes, Jared Vanderbilt before he got hurt. Unfortunately, those guys were really getting after it. Reeves and Russell did a lot of carrying of the offense early on, and then Hachimura came in, and the Lakers just got really good performances, really up and down the roster. From the Celtics side, I will say I'm fine with if you start slow in a game, if you look across the floor and you're like, all right, LeBron's not there, AD's not there, and you just take a little bit off the gas. But 5 minutes in, it was clear you're in a game. Now you had more than enough time to get serious and to get after it, and they just didn't. And that was really disappointing to see. Was they basically played at this half-hearted level almost all night long, and that's just that I think is the most worrisome, bothersome thing about the whole thing. But they're 4.5 games up at the top of the conference, still have the league's best record by a couple games. I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over one game, even if it's annoying as can be that it was to the Lakers.
And to the Lakers without LeBron, without AD. I mean, the line went to the line. We lost Keith's camera for a moment there.
I'm
line
still
went
here.
Oh, you're still okay. The line went to something like it was Celtics minus 14, minus 50, something like that. They were the heavy favorite in this one. But This is a game where the Lakers in general have played better when they've got when they do run organized offense, when they're not just kind of freelancing. But this game, you kind of had to, and like you said, it's hey, let it fly. Because what's the worst case? We're going to lose. Well, that's what's projected to happen. So why not just get out there and shoot the ball when you've got the opportunity to? And then I think this also demonstrates how powerful the 3-point shot is, and perhaps some people have talked about this over the last few years that maybe it's overly powerful because the Lakers shot 53% from three. They're not a good 3-point shooting team on the season. They're okay. They're middle of the pack. Last I looked, percentage wise, which is better than you would have expected. But in terms of volume, they're dead last in the NBA in volume on threes. Conversely, the Celtics are number one in the NBA in 3-point volume. So you had a Lakers team that had, something of an outlier shooting performance, shooting 53%. The Celtics shot 33% from three. And that made a huge, huge difference in this game. 48 attempts from deep for the Celtics, and they only shot 33%. That's going to put you in situations where you lose a game where you may not otherwise, particularly when the team you're playing gets hot from behind the arc. So again, I thought this was a demonstration of how powerful the 3-point shot is in today's NBA. I did want to get to, before we get into all the trade rumors and everything, I wanted to get your thoughts on how Joe Mazzulla handled the game, because I noticed him sort of waving the white flag. What I thought was a little bit early. He pulled his starters with 2 minutes left in the game. It was a 12-point lead, but again, the Celtics being such a heavy 3-point shooting team, I thought, okay, well, that's 4 possessions potentially. And then his decision to early in the second half pull a bunch of the starters. Clearly, he wasn't happy with his team's effort. What were your thoughts on the way that was managed?
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I think it was pulled Jaylen Brown pretty early on. He was very sloppy all night, really struggled to handle the ball. His passing was really poor. His defense was really bad too. So we got him out. Kristaps Porzingis defense was not good at all. So that was a major challenge as well. And then Derek White just didn't have it last night for large stretches. So I think he basically said, hey, I'm going to try to change it up. Mm-hmm. And then when they came back for the second half and it was more of the same, that's why I think he said, forget it, I'm just going to other guys. And then it was a game for the vast majority of the fourth quarter. But I think when he pulled the guys at the end, it was what, a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. And I think he looked at it and said, we're not making up 12 points. Not with the way we're playing. We need to just call it what it is and get everybody out of here and go. And I had no issue with any of that stuff. There were strategic things. I might have picked up Austin Reeves higher on the floor.
Sure.
I would have, tried to get, obviously guys in there. I would have maybe gone to O'Shea Brissett earlier. He generally changes the energy. I tried to go into Miles Queta. That was kind of mixed bag there a little bit. Couple of things that I'm thinking about with the Lakers, to your point, until last night, they were, I believe that this is accurate because they're 29th now. And I think this swung from last night. They were 30th in 3-point attempt rate.
Oh, are they 29th now?
They're 29th
now. They've been 30th basically all season.
Yep. And they are 15th in accuracy. So if anything, that tells me you got to get up more 3-pointers. Sure. They're also, until last night, they were 29th in offensive rebounds, like offensive rebound percentage. And they just destroyed Boston on the glass last night. And I believe they were 30th going into that game. Those are usually stats I'll take a look at. And they are, if I had that correct, let me go back to it. Yeah, they were in the lower third in forcing turnovers. So basically, they did a whole bunch of stuff that they don't usually do. They shot a ton of 3-pointers. They were all over the offensive glass, and they forced a ton of turnovers. And when the other team plays into it that way, that's what you're going to get. I will say this too. Anybody who is commenting on this, and this tends to be some Celtics fans who just think they never play poorly and could never lose a game, and every fan base has them. And there's a handful of like more league-wide fans or fans of other teams that are like, I don't know, look at the free throw disparity. The Lakers earned the calls they got. There was, other than the ridiculous review of Tatum on a flagrant foul on that Austin Reeves rebound, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It was a foul.
That was weird.
but it was
Yeah.
a foul. Go shoot your
I
free
said the
throws
same
and
thing live on
play.
the play-by-play. I'm like, that's just a normal foul, but
Yeah, there
but
was
whatever.
nothing there. If anything, I think Austin was the one who lost his balance as he came down with the ball a little bit. He definitely got fouled, but nothing
And Austin
flagrant.
sold it a
But
little bit too.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. But there were no calls that like jumped out where it's like, oh my God, what an egregious call. I think Boston could have gone to the line a couple more times, but the referees have the entire history of my life watching this game. And we're over 40 years of watching and understanding it now. They reward the team that plays harder. They always have, and that's just where it is. So I'm not gonna lose a bunch of sleep over this. Like I said, sucks that it was the Lakers, and if it was any other team, we'd all move on to something else. But kind of is what it is.
And you mentioned the offensive rebounding. That's been a strategic thing that the Lakers decided to try to get back in order to stop
Yep.
getting shredded and in transition. They have had, I'm trying to remember the opponent. They did this one other game where they completely changed that and instead blitzed the offensive glass. And I think it threw, I want to say maybe it was Phoenix. It threw them completely for a loop because the opponent wasn't expecting that. And they kind of did that in this one here too, where suddenly they started going after everything on the offensive glass.
Jackson
I think
Hayes was great. That's one of the better games I've ever seen him play.
that may be the best game of his career, and beyond the unlikelihood of the Lakers beating the Celtics last night, the most insane stat. This will be the most insane stat of the season by far. Jackson Hayes played 34 minutes and committed 0 fouls. If you've watched him at all this season, he hasn't been able to go a minute or two tops without picking up a foul or set a screen without fouling somebody. That was insane.
Yeah, he was great.
Anyway, let's get into some of our questions and comments. We've got a lot of stuff coming in. We do have the Jake Fisher trade piece to break down. Plenty of trade talks to get into. So again, thank you everybody who's not a Lakers fan or a Celtics fan for bearing with us as we talk through all that.
We have an
Muffin breaks.
actual trade from last night to get into too.
Oh, that's right. We do have an actual trade to talk about. Okay, let's do this one. Then we'll do the trade. Muffin breaks said, "I'm still convinced that Caruso would be great for the Lakers. Have you heard anything about whether the Bulls want to keep him, and what would you give up for him at most?" It does seem like the Bulls, they would like to hang on to Caruso. Right now, asking prices are still very high, but it doesn't seem like they are interested in moving him. Like you would have to really blow them away with their offer to go get him. You're not like getting him for a matching contract and like some second rounders or something.
Yeah, they want 2 first-round picks and like 2 real ones.
Yeah.
And that's not I don't think that's like a lot of posturing from the Bulls either. I think that's like this is what it's going to take for you to really get them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's where that's at. So I wouldn't say that's likely. There was a rumor that came out earlier today from Jake Fisher that the Lakers were checking in on Marcus Smart. Clearly they are looking for that type of player, a defensive guard. But getting Caruso will certainly not be easy. Certainly not as easy as it was when they got rid of him for no reason. Keith, so that we actually had a trade go down. Steven Adams.
I'm just laughing because it's like 4 years later, and that's still such a sore subject.
It really is. It really is. It's awful. It's awful. Steven Adams goes to the Houston Rockets in a deal for Victor Oladipo. Some second rounders, I believe it was 3 second rounders, go to Memphis. So I guess let's start with Houston. What do you like about this trade for the Rockets, or do you like this trade for the Rockets?
I don't hate it for the Rockets. I think it's fine. They had made it pretty clear they were going to do what they needed to do to try to get more physical in their front court. They wanted to get somebody in there. They've been linked to Robert Williams. They've been linked to some other guys. Clearly, they must have felt like somebody who could help them with that for the rest of this season was not going to be available. So you go get Steven Adams. I don't love it from the standpoint of you can't play Adams and Şengün together. It's just you're not going to have a workable offense that way, and there'd be no one for one of the two of them to guard on the other end. But if you're Ime Udoka, starting next season, you have 48 minutes of center play covered between Şengün and Adams and whatever small ball options you probably want to go to there. So they're in a really good place. So I think they must feel he's going to get back on the court and be able to give them 18, 20 minutes a night and just kind of go from there. And that way they don't have to overuse Şengün. They have a night where maybe they need a little bit more defense, a little bit more rebounding. You go to Adams. The Oladipo trade as well. he's on an expiring contract. So for Houston, that allows them to roll the salary slot over and even into a little bit higher of a number. So if they want to make a trade next summer, they'll be able to do that. They'll be able to put Adams in a deal and maybe aggregate him with another player or two and bring back a bigger salary that way. So that opens up some options that didn't exist with Oladipo beyond the next week here. So you've got that. The 3 second-round picks, none of them are great second-round picks, so I'm not really going to get too concerned because for Houston, they have a pretty full roster anyway. So you're not really necessarily looking to build up too much that way through the draft. So it's not, I'm not, let's have a party here over it, but I think it's fine. I have no real issue with the trade.
Yeah, it's something where I get that they were looking for another big. Obviously, they had the Robert Williams thing that they were poking around, but Adams is a guy that I like a lot. I think he could help the Rockets. Maybe he does wind up getting flipped this summer, but obviously he's not playing this season. But I get it. I think if you're the Rockets, you've got to be really comfortable that he's going to be back. He's going to be back to 100%. Otherwise, it's a risk to give up that many second rounders for a guy who's right now injured and is missing this entire season.
You look at it as, if nothing else, you gave up the second rounders to have a trade salary that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So now you could throw 12.6 million into another trade, and that's a steep price if that's where it lands. But clearly, that's not what they're hoping for. They're hoping he'll get back and go. If we flip to the Memphis side, Memphis, they're going to get nothing out of Victor Oladipo. I'd be kind of surprised if he even has to report there. I saw some people saying, well, maybe he could play. They're so banged up. Not going to be a thing. So I would guess they'll probably hang on to him for at least the next few days, see if another trade comes up where they could send him out to get something. And if they can't, then I think what you'll see them do is probably turn around and work some kind of, I would say a buyout, but there's really no reason for Oladipo to give back money because he's probably not going to catch on with anybody else. So just a straight waiver. That frees up a roster spot. Likely that will go to Gigi Jackson, who's really outplayed his two-way contract, somebody they'd like to have long-term. And then the big thing for them, though, is they clear 12.6 million off of next year's books, which is really important for the Grizzlies because they were looking at being a second apron team potentially. Now that could free up enough room to keep Luke Kennard. We'll see what happens with that one. Or maybe you work a deal where you decline his team option but re-sign him to a lower number where you can add a few more years on with Kennard. And otherwise you could also be in a spot where, hey, maybe we move off of one or two of the guys we drafted recently, like Zaire Williams or Jake LaRavia or David Roddy, and clear a little bit more space that way. So they gave themselves some flexibility on a roster that was pretty full. And I expect they'll use these second round picks over the next 2 years. It's 2 this draft and then 1 next draft. And I think what those will really be is those will turn into, this is how we will backfill our two-way spots as we promote guys from there, or we'll draft and stash a guy or two because they've got a really full roster.
Right. Okay. Let's get into this. This is crazy.
Mr. I'm sorry. Can I do one other thing on the trade?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Just because it's kind of a fun thing here with this, the way this all kind of comes down. The mechanics of this trade were interesting because how it's going to, well, not how it's going to work, how it did work was the Grizzlies had the disabled player exception for John Morant. That's how they acquired Victor Oladipo. So that allowed them to create a $12.6 million trade exception for Steven Adams. So now what you're in is you have that bigger spot. It's about $200K bigger than Morant's DPE. That was going to expire anyway in March. Now you have this spot here with the with the trade exception that runs out a full year. And now the remainder of the Morant DP, it would have been about $3 million-ish. That goes away because you can only use that for one player. And then it also, the Adams disabled player exception also goes away because he's not on the roster anymore. So in theory, the idea is you get that to replace a guy who's on your roster. When that guy's gone, that goes away and it doesn't transfer to Houston or anything like that. Houston can't request one. The deadline's already passed to request a disabled player exception, but the guy has to be injured when you're on your roster. So just some kind of fun cap mechanics there.
That's it. I was wondering about that. I was wondering how they were generating a trade exception in that deal. He's that big of a trade exception. Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Mr. Easley said, "Front office Friday." Yep. Hope you two are doing well and in great health. How crazy would it have been that if the Cavs, Knicks, and Sixers lost last night, Doc would have been the coach of the All-Star game? Is that right?
Yeah, they confirmed it that he will go and be the coach, and it's still more likely than not that he'll be the coach. We'll see. There's like scenarios. I think it might be today that they could kind of wrap that up. So we'll see. It's going to be a crazy thing if he is the All-Star coach. I'll say that much.
Doc Rivers off the couch coaching the All-Star game. That's
good on him.
That's
it's
crazy.
Funny though, knowing Doc, I bet he would rather not. He'd probably rather go play golf somewhere for a few days. But yeah, just a weird thing.
All right, let's get into this one. Mr. Easley said a few questions. Do you think a team picks up Tony Snell? You saw that there was that article about him trying to get the insurance coming with the Players Association. Can Adam Silver accommodate him? Also, is it just me, or have the flagrant foul calls gotten horrible? Well, let's start with the Tony Snell thing. What did you think about that whole situation? He's trying to get his way back into the NBA in order to qualify for benefits. Do you think this is going to work out for him? He's got till, I think, today, right?
Today, yeah. I don't know. We'll see. Tony Snell is very much a fringe guy in the league, so a team would have to really either want to do him a solid or feel like, all right, Tony Snell can come in and at least give us some bench shooting down the line. A 10-day contract, I believe, does not get it done. It has to be a standard contract. Now, a team could sign him to a standard deal, keep him for a couple days, and then waive him and basically say, hey, here's a payday plus you got to your 10 years of service and you qualify. And what the 10 years is for Tony Snell is he needs to be on a roster by today for it to count for his insurance benefits. And if you're a 10-year player, you become completely vested. And that means you're covered for life, not just you, but your entire dependency. So that would be his wife and his kids and all that stuff. I get it with everybody who screamed and yelled. I mean, my mentions were a freaking mess for a day when I said it would be nice if somebody would sign him and do him a solid. But people were screaming and yelling. This guy made over $50 million in his career. Made is not what he took home, first of all. But yes, I get it. He has more money than 99% of people will ever see in their life.
Yeah.
But he has a lifelong responsibility to care for his two sons and presumably long beyond probably his own lifespan with this as well. He has two sons who have autism. I highly suggest people go read Jake Fisher's article on it because it's going to tell you a lot more stuff than I would spend the time on the show here to get into. Can Adam Silver accommodate him? No, Adam Silver can't make a team sign him. And this isn't an Adam Silver issue. This is a Players Association thing. This would have to be a major thing where everybody would have to come together from the league to the Players Association to, I believe there's also some case in the retired Players Association as well, where they would all have to agree, all right, hey, we're going to call it vested and give them the 10th year. And then you get into, all right, who else are we going to do this for too? Then what situation did these guys have with that? So I don't think anything's going to happen. And I think Tony Snell's going to have to try to figure out another way, to get on to a roster and go from there. So we'll see with this. And then flagrant foul calls. Yeah. I mean, we're reviewing way too much stuff, in my opinion. Like, we don't need to go back to Kevin McHale clotheslining Kurt Rambis into the seats to get calls reviewed, but we review so many things now, and it just slows the game down. Nobody needs that. Nobody likes this amount of reviews. So we need to get into a better place very quickly.
And it feels like when they're obvious, they still take too long, looking and looking and looking and looking, and it can grind a game to a halt. So I agree. I think it's gotten to be a bit excessive here. No Cap said, could the Warriors sign someone if Clay and Paul walk this offseason? So you lose Chris Paul, you lose Clay Thompson. Does that clear enough salary for them to, I mean, they would have what, a mid-level exception? I'm assuming, I don't have their sheet in front of me, but that would clear up a mid-level exception for them. I think they'd still be over the cap. And then saying, I see Daryl throwing, I'm assuming Daryl Morey throwing big money at Clay this summer. How much space would they have? So let's start with the Warriors piece to that. Clay Thompson and Chris Paul walk away. What does their situation look like at that point?
Yeah, I mean, they're still well over the cap. So they would be, unless a bunch of other things happen too. But you got to remember, they have Curry, Wiggins, and Draymond Green all making north of $20 million. So they're going to be well over the cap no matter what in that situation. But yeah, they would free up the mid-level exception that would come because they would be under the tax in that scenario. So there's a world where that could happen, and that could be how it plays out. The Daryl Morey throwing a big bag at Clay, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, like if you're a Sixers fan, I wouldn't be thrilled with that.
Yeah, use your cap space on somebody who can give you more for longer, And I think Clay is largely gotten back to new normal, I guess, for him. So we go from there. We have a baseball trade if you want to go over that.
Oh, sure. I'm not going to hit the breaking news button, but is it?
No,
it's
not even a good one. No.
Oh, okay.
It's a fairly minor trade. I just looked at the notification and I saw a trade and I was like, oh, bad. No, it's Jeff Passan. So, yeah. And then Chris Paul, I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens with that whole situation. I would let's keep our eyes open here for the next,
sure.
So what do we get? 6 days left to see if anything happens beyond that.
The clock is ticking, or in LeBron's terms, the hourglass is running out.
Yeah.
Senpai, my guy said, is this going to be an arms race deadline? As in, if one or two big trades happen by contenders, is that going to cause other teams to get trades done? So far, like what we're hearing, what we're reading out there, it sounds like more teams are pulling players off the market than are really getting deals done. And it's sounding more and more like it's just going to be kind of not a dud of a deadline. I think there's going to be role players being moved, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be a big arms race. Like, oh, this team did this, we better go get this big name player. Those big names aren't really out there. I could see where a trade or two could open things up a little bit, but it doesn't really seem like this is going to be a big move trade deadline. Maybe I'm wrong. You never know in the NBA. Things change with one phone call. But right now, it feels more like it's going to be more of a moves around the margins type of deadline.
Yeah, if you got into a spot where the Thunder made a big move, that could spark. Then does Minnesota make a big move? Do the Clippers try to do? The Clippers aren't in a position to do anything big, but like, do they do something? That sometimes does happen. Sometimes teams are like, oh man, we got to react to this now. You know, if the Knicks make another big move, do the teams that aren't probably Boston and Milwaukee, because they're also not in a real spot to make a big trade either, but do the Cavs or the Sixers or somebody else who are like, man, the Knicks they're for real already, and like now they're even more for real. We got to get into it. So I think that becomes a spot where maybe that sparks it. But yeah, I think it's going to be like, let's say the Brogdons, Bogdanovich type level guys. I think those are more the moves we see. I don't think we're going to get an out of nowhere, trade. I know, hey, it seemed like for yesterday, I'm sure you had to spend more time than you wanted to on it. That someone was trying to manifest that LeBron might get traded, which clearly Rich Paul
that got shut down today.
Shut that down very quickly today.
Yeah.
And I'll say, for what it's worth, the people I asked about that were like, look, at best, and they were very clear, it was like at best, if Bronny comes into the league, LeBron really wants to play with him somewhere, at best something happens maybe this summer. But everybody's like, he's just not getting traded. And that was just crazy to think of anyway. So I think it would have to be something like that. I think that would set off like, oh my goodness, what happened here? And now those moves just don't necessarily, seem to be on the horizon.
You mentioned Brogdon. The Fisher's piece had even Brogdon looking less likely to be moved, and that's the guy that we went, okay, this is a player that's definitely getting moved by the trade deadline. But is there just a lot of posturing right now with, like, because we know it's a seller's market, we know there's way more buyers than sellers. Do you think sellers at this point are just kind of saying like, hey, maybe we just won't trade anybody then unless you guys increase your offers? Is that where we're at, or do you think like the Blazers are really going to keep him?
Yeah, they might. I think Portland's looking at it and saying, hey, Scoot Henderson is not ready right now to play 35 minutes a night, even on a bad rebuilding team. We want to take it slow because sometimes it sounds good. And I'm a big proponent of throw young players on bad teams as many minutes as they can handle. But
Sure.
it's that they can handle is the key phrase there. Because if you make him play 35 minutes a night and he's just not ready, you can wreck a young player very early with that. I think to some extent, when he finally started playing that, it's almost a little bit what happened to James Wiseman. I think it was, here's a whole bunch of minutes just because of your draft position. He wasn't ready for him. And now we'll never find out if he's going to be good. And there's a lot more to that, too. Maybe he's just not good. Right. But I think in this case, I'd be very cautious of trading Malcolm Brogdon just to kind of trade him, because a lot of the offers you're going to get now could be better in the summertime when he's an expiring
Mm.
contract. Teams have just more flexibility to do stuff. And you may have a couple teams who are, we didn't really need Malcolm Brogdon, but once we get through the playoffs, we realize what we need is Malcolm Brogdon. So now we have more to offer and we go that way. I still think there's a chance he gets traded, but I think for now, I get why teams are holding kind of firm on what they want, be it Portland with him or Detroit with Bogdanovich or Charlotte with some of their guys, because
Mhm.
they just don't think you want to rush into a move right now.
Yeah. Yeah, which again does not set up for a particularly explosive trade deadline, but as
But
we're
it's
saying at
6
the
days
beginning,
away.
yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of time for all of
Yeah.
that stuff to shift and change, and one move here, one move there. Next thing you know, everything goes crazy. You get some compliments here for looking good in purple.
Thanks. Orlando City,
Um,
purple and yellow, baby. Let's go. Lions. It's almost time.
D-Rock said, I doubt the Nets' untouchable stance. Mikhail Claxton, Dinwiddie, Royce, Dorian by Thursday, and will trade Johnson and Simmons this summer.
Woo, that's everybody, man.
That's a lot.
That's like the
Just
whole
trade
roster.
everybody must go.
Yeah.
Right? That's the fire sale.
They are not going to trade all those guys by Thursday. I would be shocked if that happened. A couple of them, sure. I think that's true. For what it's worth, I don't believe the Nets turned down 2 first-round picks for Dorian Finney-Smith. That's if they do, we need to have a whole other conversation about who's running things and should they be there. And
Right.
I know it's Sean
But
Marks, but like, what are we
I
doing?
mentioned, though, not all firsts are created equal. People were asking me
True.
about that with Lakers Nation, and I said,
Yeah.
hey, look, that this doesn't mean they were real first. They could be kind of fake, heavily protected first. I'd have to imagine, because like if it was 2 fully unprotected firsts from like a bad team or something, like they'd be crazy to turn that down. So I don't totally buy that, but there's a very big difference between a first round pick that's unprotected and a first round pick that's not.
Yeah, and I would be actively looking to move Dinwiddie or Royce O'Neal. They're on expiring contracts. Nick Claxton a little bit different because I think they'd like to keep him if they can. But if you get a really, really good you get a really good offer for him, I would consider it. The Rocket stuff, that seems to be pretty murky on what was actually offered for Mikal Bridges. We talked in depth about that the other day. Johnson and Simmons this summer. Yeah, I mean, maybe Simmons reverts to being a big expiring contract. So a lot of that becomes where the Nets at. Are they, hey, we'll trade Ben Simmons to you. You give us a contract that's also not real desirable, runs out a couple years, but you throw a first to us. Maybe they are willing to jump in on that. So we'll see. I think they're going to do something here in the next few days.
All right. Marcos says Jeremy Grant for Rui Hachimura, Torian Prince, and a first round pick. If we're keeping Ham, let's give him the tools he needs. Grant improves the wing position and he can make a big 3. He's also got that massive contract, and I also don't know if Portland will go for that. They seem pretty reluctant to trade Jeremy Grant in general, much less trade him with the Lakers.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I was Portland. There's just not enough value there. You're getting a first that is pretty nebulous. It just, if anybody knew, and I know we have a lot of new people who have subscribed and are watching now. My feelings on Lakers far out first are, you almost have to think of them as like a neutral mid first round pick, because the Lakers are very good at flipping a bad situation very quickly. Part of that's just they're the Lakers. They can do that. And there is the potential LeBron retires, moves on, AD gets hurt again, and everything falls apart. Maybe one of those picks ends up great in a few years. That could definitely be a thing. But you're pretty nebulous in what that pick would be. So you're really talking then about the value here is Hachimura and a who knows first, because Prince doesn't have any value to Portland. I wouldn't do that if I was Portland. I hang on to Jeremy Grant. He's playing really, really well. So I would not move him.
Yeah, and that's if you're from the Lakers side of things, if it's the same thing with Zach LaVine. If you're taking on that contract, you have to be convinced he's the guy that is going to be the player you want with Anthony Davis moving forward, potentially into a post-LeBron era. And I like Jeremy Grant. I don't know if he's that guy if you're going to burn that first, the 2029 first, and then give up your trade assets. So value-wise, I think it'd be fine, but or do you want to make the commitment moving forward that he's the guy that you want? That's going to be the question mark.
I don't love it for the Lakers either, for all the reasons you just laid out. And you have to, if you're the Lakers, you have to operate somewhat in a world of, hey, if for some reason we don't have LeBron either this summer or on the early end or after next year on the maybe further out end, maybe the best thing to do is really let everything else kind of roll off the books, and then we rebuild around AD and Reeves, and we figure it out from there. That's not the worst place to be in, because again, the Lakers with a ton of cap space that's a great place to be. And again, I know everybody's gonna be like, but free agents don't change teams like that anymore. Well, they don't until it's the Lakers having the cap space, and you can use it via trades. You can use it in all kinds of other ways. So I think I would want to. I'm with you. We've said it ad nauseum mostly about Zach LaVine. If you're making that big move and locking into the next 4 years of money beyond this year, even 3 years at near max money, you better be certain that's the right guy.
All right. This question says, fellas, there's no way the Rockets are offering multiple of our picks back and the Nets aren't negotiating. This has to be posturing. Maybe I'm naive. Is that Nets fans thinking that they should be looking to move Mikal Bridges and potentially just posturing to get a better deal out of the Rockets? That could certainly be what's going on here. If you're getting multiple of your own first round picks back, there's definitely value to that, especially if you're going to go into a full rebuild. There's a lot of value to that certainty of having your own picks. We'll see though. We'll see where the Nets are really at with Bridges. I also like Bridges a lot, and I get why they would look at him and see, hey, he could be part of our future. The question is, how soon is that future coming?
Yeah, and I think I think there may be a little bit of posturing going on here, because I got to imagine if I'm the Nets, if I'm turning something like this down, it's because I know I have something else potentially lined up that I think I can get done, whether that's in the next week here or that's within the next 4 or 5 months in the free agency. You got to feel pretty good about that. So we'll see.
All right, we've got a few more here.
Slick back.
Mission 86 said, Keith, quick apology for master locking you last night. If you saw that, nothing personal, all love. Thanks for everything you and Trevor do. Yeah, there were big Lakers fans. We were fired up after the win. So yeah.
Hey, I have no problem with getting master lock. I nominated myself as the master lock after the Christmas game. So
that's right.
It's totally fair. So I don't even know if that's allowed by the rules, but
it is.
I did it anyway.
It is. It's happened. It's a thing that does happen every now and then. As physically impossible as it would be, but yes.
I don't know the way my back's feeling right now. Maybe that's what I messed it up doing.
That could be it. That could be it. Master locked into a back injury. Jeremy said, "Happy Front Office Friday. What are realistic deals for Kyle Kuzma? opinion on best fit overall. I know he fits so many places, just fun to speculate. So Kyle Kuzma, again, this was some big news yesterday. We've had a lot of negative news in terms of a active trade market, a lot of players being pulled off the market. Now we've got, though, that the Wizards might take a little bit less for Kyle Kuzma, and today that they might take a little bit less for Tyus Jones, might not cost a first-round pick to get him after all. But Kyle Kuzma, $25.5 million this season, but then the salary declines over the next 3 seasons after this one, 23.5, 21.5, 19.5, essentially, is the rest of that deal. So who makes sense as a landing? But for some reason, the team that jumps to mind for me is Dallas, but I think there are a number of places that he could wind up.
Yeah, Dallas has been heavily connected with him, and anytime certain reporters in certain markets report something, it should perk you up a little bit. And when Mark Stein has something on the Mavericks, like, you should be perked
Yeah.
up. He's as well connected, and he mentioned that in his Substack. Jake Fisher mentioned it in his article today. The Kings have also been heavily connected to Kyle Kuzma as far back as free agency, when it looked like the Kings might have been free agent players, and then they used their cap space to differently. They extended Harrison Barnes, they renegotiated and extended Domas Sabonis. So they went in a slightly different way. So I think those are the teams I would start with there. But that could be one where, because his contract is pretty good, you could get a surprise team jumps in there. It's like, whoa, I didn't expect them,
Right.
just to kind of throw in there on Kyle Kuzma, because we talked about this, might even been yesterday, maybe it was the day before. He's very plug and play, because you can ask him to do a lot of things. And you're even at a point by the end of that contract, you might even be playing him in a high value 6-man kind of role, where it is, hey, just come in and be a designated scorer off the bench kind of thing. And
Sure.
that would be interesting. But yeah, I think Washington's going to be pretty active here in the next few days, just because they've got a lot of guys. Even if it's not Kuzma, I think Daniel Gafford, Tyus Jones, definitely. We'll see if anybody else gets involved there, but I think those guys would go for sure.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different guys that could be moved from Washington, and I think they're going to be an active team, and they should be. They should be, given where they're at right now. They should be a team that's out there trying to make moves. Causing Lyric said, "Do you think Hayes should start next to AD? Need to find a way to let AD play the 4 again. We have the right players. We just need better rotations." No, please no. Let's not overreact to one game. We've seen Jackson Hayes. I've been talking about this for months. He's been essentially unplayable. He had a great game, and give him all the credit for that. And I hope that's the way he plays from here on out. But I'm not overreacting to one good game from Jackson Hayes, and certainly not thrusting him into the starting lineup permanently and sliding Anthony Davis out of the center spot or anything like that. Yeah, I would. If Jackson Hayes is still doing this a month from now, maybe we have the conversation. But this is one good game after weeks and weeks of him being, not a guy that you can really put on the floor with any confidence. So until we see this with any consistency, I would not be slotting him into the starting 5.
Yeah, you got to see it regularly, like you said. And then my other piece with this is, it's not as much about AD. I've held firm to this for close to a year now. This is about LeBron. LeBron's a 4 now.
Yep.
He can't defend threes. He's not going to chase a lot of guys around the perimeter. He's not going to do a lot of guarding out there. You want him on bigger players. He's now to the point where he's almost become like a backline switch guy, where he kind of sits around the block and then you switch almost around him. And it's not to say, yeah, if it's I need one stop at the end of a game, I'm okay with throwing LeBron on just about anybody and saying, go get it done. We're talking about making multiple plays over, because it appears Darvin Ham's decided LeBron can play 40 minutes a night. So you're talking about guarding guys for 40 minutes a night. Like, that's just not a thing, not that way anymore. And then AD, part of what makes him so special is because he is playing the 5. At the 4, a lot of what he does becomes slightly negated, because it's just not, okay, great, he spots up and shoots. Well, every 4 does that. So it just becomes, you want him drawing those mismatches against opposing bigs and doing the things that he does, pulling the bigs away from the lane, open up the drives and all that stuff. I don't think it's the right way to go. Now, there are lineups where they should probably play together for sure. I think, but that's depending on, let's see Jackson Hayes do this more than once. Do this 4 or 5 times over the next couple weeks. Okay. now we'll find you a much more permanent role where you're getting 15, 20 minutes a night.
Yeah, exactly. Cameron said, favorite possible trade not involving the Lakers or the Celtics.
That's a good question.
That's
I
interesting.
don't, yeah, I don't, it sounds weird to say this. I don't spend a lot of time on fake trade stuff because there's just so much going on that is trying to find out what's real out there
Yeah.
that I spend much more time on that. Um, I it's cheating because now it's gotten done, but I loved Siakam for the Pacers. Like I thought
Mm-hmm.
that was just a move that made a ton of sense for them. I loved it. OG and Anunoby. The Knicks getting him kind of came a little bit out of nowhere. But I liked OG and Anunoby for about 25 teams in the league. I thought he'd be really good. So I think I like Orlando going and getting like Malcolm Brogdon. I think if they could do that,
Yeah.
that's a trade I would really like to see. Something like that where it's a player who could come in, be an upgrade over what they have, but be additive without taking away from Paulo and Franz too much. Because I don't want a guard coming in that needs 25 shots a night and is going to have the ball a lot. And those two guys are going to be relegated to standing around watching because they're what makes the Magic go. So I just want somebody who's additive to that.
By the way, All-Star Paulo Banchero. You
Yeah.
should note that. Um,
Yeah, we didn't get into it. Let's talk that real quickly.
yeah.
Did anything jump out at you as like, oh my God, that's an egregious snub, or that guy never should have gotten picked?
You know, I here's my thing, and I know you have the same opinion. I don't care that much about the All-Star
Yeah.
game or the All-Star teams or any of that really, just because it's not. Look, I look at it as, and we've talked about this. The players don't care much about the All-Star game. Why am I going to care much about the All-Star game? I get it; it's still important in terms of just making the team being selected, but the game itself isn't all that exciting. So I think it's another one of those situations where it's almost set up just to create arguments. Because, like, for example, when they do the top 50 players or top 75, it's no matter what, good players are going to be left out.
Yep.
No matter what, there's no way around it. And so every year it's going to
where
be
you draw the line. Yeah.
right. Every year it's going to be this player got snubbed, that player got snubbed. How dare they? So egregious. Blah. All this stuff. Like let's have something to be outraged about. Um, I think these are all good players. I look at this and I say, okay, well, should Karl Anthony Towns have made it in the West, or should it have been the Sacramento Kings guys? Okay, that's a fair question, especially when Sacramento's had both Sabonis and Fox playing well. Towns, I get it though. Minnesota's also been really, really good this year, so maybe they needed two All-Stars. So I understand the thought process there. Trae Young, I think he's going to wind up being an injury replacement. So I'm not that worried about him missing out, but that's the other one where you kind of go, how did Trae Young not make it? But the question is always, if you say this guy should have been an All-Star, who are you taking out of the mix? And is that player a deserving player or not? That's where it gets tricky. And again, these are all great players. So I get people getting all upset, like, oh, this player should have been an All-Star, or this player shouldn't have been, or whatever. But to me, it's almost just set up as something to get riled up about today, and then tomorrow it'll be something else.
All right. So here's the things I firmly believe in. The All-Star game should have 15 players per side. Now, that's what real rosters are. That's how many
Sure.
players are allowed to be active for a real game. It's time to up it. We have more teams than we ever had when it was set at 12 per side. So there's more players to pick from. The talent pool is just bigger. We've never changed and been reflected that with the All-Star game. My second thing is, if you're going to scream and yell that Domantas Sabonis should have been an All-Star, I'm not going to argue with you that he shouldn't have been, but tell me who has to come out, because
Exactly.
we don't have 15. We don't have unlimited spots. So I would have been fine if Sabonis made it over Towns. I also would have been fine if he made it over AD. Honestly, it was weird that a team that's not playing that well got two All-Stars, and I get LeBron got voted in.
Right.
So that's a whole other thing. So it is what it is. I'm not going to, fight anybody on that. I do find it a little weird that coaches in some respects seem to value winning with some of their picks, but then in
They
other
do.
places it didn't seem like they did. So that's always a little off with some of that stuff. So I think that's a little weird. So we'll see. I think there's a chance, like you said, we know we're gonna have two injury replacements in the East, definitely it's going to be Embiid and Randall are
Mhm.
going to get replaced. We need to talk about Embiid because we haven't talked about that yet.
Yeah.
And then we kind of go from there. So no real issues with that. There. So it's it's nothing was egregious though. There was nobody who was like, oh my gosh, how did this guy make it? It just kind of is what it is. I'm not going to lose my mind over it.
Yeah, that's just it. And I think with the AD thing, it becomes difficult because AD has outplayed LeBron on the season.
Yeah.
So if LeBron's in, how do you not, but that's, I get it. The Lakers, if it's going to be wins based, the Lakers record does not suggest they should have two all-stars, but
people are like, stop the disrespect. Like, stop disrespecting Sabonis. Go look at how good the guy's been. It's been ridiculous. Like,
I mean, AD's the better player, so that's the challenge. But the Kings have certainly been winning more, and so if it's wins based, I get it for sure.
And I mean, Sabonis is really, really good.
Oh, he is. He's
I don't
understand very good.
how people don't realize this yet. And I'm not saying he's better than AD in a vacuum. I take AD over it for sure. But I just if we're gonna factor in winning, but I don't know. We'll see. Yes, somebody said Trevor must have Woj notifications on. We both do. So we both definitely just looked at that.
Yep.
And then two came in a row. So it was like, wait, what are we? Like,
what happened here?
So, that's when I perk up. Oh, we might have something, but
right.
I'm holding out hope, man. We got a few more minutes left, and maybe.
Yeah, we may have to save a few of these for our next show. Any Bulls rumors? Just that they're kind of slowing things down right now. Doesn't sound like they're, it's same thing as a lot of teams around the NBA. So we'll see.
Caruso, maybe. We'll see if a Levine deal emerges here in the next little bit, but for now, no. Yeah.
All right, let's go here. Also, any news on Marcus Smart trades? Just that the Grizzlies so far have shut down those trade talks. Doesn't sound like they want to move on from him, but the teams have been calling them interested. The Lakers, was it the Wolves? Was that the other team?
Yeah,
it was the Bucks. So. It was the Bucks.
Bucks, yeah. I mean, if Marcus Smart gets traded to the Lakers, I'm literally gonna throw up all over my keyboard and everything else, and it's gonna be bad. I won't be able to stomach. Like that will really bother me. So that answers Renee's question here. Is like that's my thought.
The Lakers being interested in Marcus. Hey, Shaq finished his career in a Celtics jersey. So I know. So I'm saying I know how you feel.
Yeah, for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, credit where credit is due. Shaq was really good for them for about half a season.
Yeah.
Then he got hurt, and then it turned into Shaq's going to be back in a week, and then it turned into Shaq came back for like one half of one playoff game and got hurt again, and was just.
And he was like, I'm done."
Yeah, no, I don't want Marcus Smart on the Lakers under no circumstances.
I was thinking about this earlier today. I remember the draft that year, hoping that the Celtics wouldn't take Marcus Smart because I wanted him to fall one spot to 7 to get to the Lakers, and then debating Julius Randle or Noah Vonleh. Like if Smart doesn't last, who should be picked? Who should be picked there? And the Lakers wound up going with Randle in that situation, as they should. Who wins, Steph or Sabrina? And how bad will it be if Steph loses? I mean,
I think it'll be bad at all.
No, I don't think I think it'll actually be pretty cool to see that happen.
They're shooting from their respective lines using their ball. Yeah. So I don't that's fine. Like I have no issue if he loses. I mean, shooting is it's a skill that just but not to say anybody can do it, because certainly I can't shoot at that level, but like it's just that's a skill based thing, not a thing. And I've seen some people say she should have to shoot with. Did she say she's shooting from the NBA line? I haven't seen that.
Maybe. I think she said she would.
I know she's shooting,
but I haven't followed it that close.
And people have said she should have to shoot with the men's ball. That doesn't make sense to me. Like it's it's just different tools for different people. Like I have no issue with that. But yeah, I think Steph will win. But you put Steph in a shooting competition against anybody, I'm probably gonna pick him. Maybe prime Larry Bird, maybe not, just because Bird seemed to have something for those 3-point contests. Like it's one of my all-time favorite stories when he walked in and said, "Who's playing for second?"
Right,
and then went out and destroyed everybody without even taking his warm-up jacket off. Like it's just
Sabrina, what she ran the table, right? Last year.
Something like that. It was pretty close if she didn't. I believe it was pretty close.
Yeah, I mean it was an unreal performance. And if she beats him, that's fine. That it's
Yeah,
like it's in a
awesome.
shooting
Yeah,
shooting contest. I mean
yeah.
it's not like we're saying she would beat him one-on-one
No,
or something
yeah.
like that. We're talking about just in shooting. Like I don't
I'm not going to recommend anybody signs her to a 10-day to play in the NBA or anything. It's just,
know.
yeah, it's fine. So
All right.
it
Keith said
doesn't
perfect
count unless they
15 in the
play the
All-Star.
sport with the same rules of quality. Come on, get out of here. Go away.
Yeah. I mean
It's just
she,
like,
right.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, moving on. I don't want the show to devolve into that.
Right. All right.
We might get a whole new audience, but I don't want them as our audience. So, no, thanks. Let's pick it back up. Apple says, "Love the pick of the dream team." Yeah, greatest team ever assembled.
Good stuff. That summer was amazing.
You
That was
can't see
epic.
it. I'll have to. Maybe I can. Let's see. Yeah, you see, I have the starting lineup guys up above them.
Oh, cool.
Dream team starting lineup guys in a case up above.
That's in with the little figures you used to be able to get.
Yep.
Oh, very cool. I remember those.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I had that was one of the we moved around. It kind of kept staying at my parents' house. Then my parents sent a box with all this stuff in it, and those are in there. And my wife was like, "We can actually do something with this." So that's yeah. It's not Doc for All-Star. It's Doc's going to coach the All-Star team because the Bucks may have the best record outside of the Celtics, and Joe Mazzulla can't coach the All-Star team two in a row.
Right. That's what it is. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not Doc Rivers should be the All-Star coach. It's not. You don't vote in the coach. I guess let's put it
nobody picked him. It's just
yeah,
crazy. Barkley was ridiculous in the '92 Olympics, outside of elbowing the poor dude from Angola. But other than that, he was pretty dominant. Yeah, that was the true, like MJ was like, I'm here, but I'm putting in the minimal amount of effort each game, and then until they played Croatia and Tony Kukoc, then him and
Pippen.
Let's go. Let's shut this dude down. And they made his life miserable. I love the Dream Team. I've watched the documentary at least 10 times. When it's on, I've read Jack McCallum's book that the documentary is based off of probably 5 times. That's my favorite team ever is the Dream Team.
They were absolutely incredible. It was amazing.
And it was the first, we never thought we were going to see Bird and Magic played together. They'd always
right.
been in opposite conferences, and we finally got to see it. It was just like that alone was really cool.
All right, let's finish up with this. First time making one of these live. Thanks for the great content. Thank you for making it. We appreciate you coming in and glad you could make it. And,
look at his picture too. He's right down the road from me.
Yeah, there you go.
Castle. Love it.
There you go.
Right down the road. I can hear the fireworks from our house every day.
Can give him a wave.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Let's wrap things up there. Obviously, we've got a big week ahead. If anything breaks over the weekend, we'll jump on and we'll do a show then. Otherwise, we're going to have our live shows next week. We'll be live at the trade deadline, and then we'll probably do a wrap-up show the next day too, because that'll be our front office Friday. So lots going on. We do appreciate all of you for joining us. Let's get ready for a big week ahead. Until next time, everybody.
Sorry, I don't cut you off there because people keep asking. We'll let you know early in the week what time on deadline day.
Yes.
Probably somewhere between 1 and 2. Like let's just say that we'll be at least ahead of the trade deadline is at 3 p.m. Eastern, so we'll be ahead of that just a little bit. Probably an hour or two ahead. Probably depends, quite honestly, how much there's happened the night before or earlier in the day, and how much we have to break down before we get into it. And then we might have something fun to share maybe at the beginning of next week too. So we'll leave you on that one.
Oh, good cliffhanger. I like it. Yep. We're going to share something exciting with you guys to kick off next week. All right. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.